Good evening, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to Cambodia Global Dialogue of Southeast Asia TV. Tonight we have the pleasure to have with us the representative of the International Monetary Fund, Dr. Faisal Ahmed. Dr. Ahmed, I think we know each other, we can call each other.
Please call me Faisal.
Faisal, yes. Welcome, Faisal. Yes.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Good. Well, Faisal, I think you're coming to Cambodia. It's recently. It's quite a welcome for me to have a chance to meet you, and I'm glad that even in the first couple of months you decide to come and to my show. Normally, other agencies they say, "Look, give us a year." But before we move on, perhaps I'd like to give you a few minutes to introduce yourself a bit to the audience, so this way they know a bit about your background. Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity. Let me briefly tell you a little bit about my background. I am from Bangladesh. I'm very, very lucky and pleased to have the opportunity to work on Cambodia. Personally, I feel very much at home. Many of the things are very similar to what I grew up with. And professionally, I did my graduate work on Asia. I have been covering Asia from Washington for some time. I have worked on the region. I have worked on emerging market issues, not just in Asia, but in other parts of the region. So having the opportunity to come to Cambodia at a time when there is a lot of excitement in the region,
yes,
it's a great opportunity. So
yes,
that's, given that background,
yeah,
hopefully, we'd have many interesting things to work on together. Yes,
indeed. Now, I saw your profile, and I think we share a similar thing in the sense that we've been a little bit everywhere, in different parts of the globe, looking different issue there. But before we move on, I think it's important that maybe you take a few minutes to share a bit about the institution you represent, which is the International Monetary,
yeah.
So please, the IMF, that everybody call the IMF, yes.
Yeah. So let me just share with you what are the key things that IMF work on. At the international level, the mandate of the IMF is to ensure and prevent crisis in the international monetary system, so that there is big, sharp movements in the international monetary system. And at the national level, IMF is generally involved in three folds of activities. First one is the surveillance.
Okay.
Second one is technical assistance. Okay. And third one is financial assistance. Let me just discuss the first one, surveillance. Surveillance. What does surveillance involve? For IMF, the surveillance focuses on the macroeconomic and financial stability. Okay. Macroeconomic and financial stability basically means that you grow at a sustainable rate. Okay. And price-wise, there is no major sharp movements in prices. Sort of predictable, moderate level of inflation. You try to maintain that. Financial stability means financial system operates in a way so that it can intermediate in the most efficient way from taking the money from the savers, putting into the most efficient use. And it can do it for over a long period of time without any major crisis. So that's the surveillance part. Yes. Technical.
That's the bulk of it, right?
That's a big part of it. Yeah, and as part of the surveillance activity, IMF has regular consultations. Generally once a year. They call it Article 4 consultations.
Article 4,
consultation. When the team looks at all the sectors, like what's happening with the growth, what's happening in the fiscal sector once a year. And it's not just with Cambodia, it's all the 187 member countries that surveillance.
I make it a habit every year to check, your mission report. Because it gives a good picture.
It does.
It gives a picture of the country.
Yeah, it does. It tries to give sort of sectoral understanding and what the key macroeconomic issues it's facing. It focuses all those issues. So it's a good way to get a sense of what the macro economic conditions are. And as part of that surveillance at the global level, IMF also produces output called World Economic Outlook, Global Financial Stability Reports, and some regional economic outlook. Those are good ways to know what's happening all over the world. Let's come to the second big chunk of work that IMF does in many countries. That's the technical assistance. Technical assistance, IMF consults and tries to help or gives advice on how to design effective policy. This could be this could be policy in the financial sectors, could be monetary and exchange rate issues, or on fiscal issues, how to raise revenue, how to design expenditure in a way that is efficient. So there are all these different issues. So that's the technical assistance side, and IMF has had a very productive working relationship. We have worked very closely with Cambodia.
Central Bank primarily.
We have worked on
counterpart, no?
We have worked with the central bank. We have worked with the Ministry of Economy and Finance. We have worked with different agencies within the Ministry of Finance, National Institute of Statistics, Ministry of Planning. So agencies that deal with the mandate of macroeconomic and financial stability. And the very third part is the financial assistance. We don't have financial engagement assistance now with Cambodia. But globally, there is right now, I think IMF provides, as you may know, around 330 billion of loans. And a good amount of it is going to Europe currently. So financial assistance, there is none. Lot of surveillance activities, lot of technical assistance, and both will be very key for getting a good feel for the macroeconomic developments and get a good for the policies.
Speaking of the global economic outlook, perhaps we can start that, how the IMF is publishing all that, but what's the latest now?
The latest issues is that we are seeing growth around 4% or so, but the global growth is somewhat unbalanced. Unbalanced in the sense that if you look at the advanced economy, you know, US, Europe, Japan, they are they have high level of debt. When you have high level of debt, it has implications on growth. Because, for example, in the US, if consumers have a lot of debt, that has an impact on the demand, that has an impact on growth. So globally, we see around 4%, much unbalanced, slower growth in the advanced economy, but emerging economies growing rather rapidly, although we have to closely monitor.
The overheating effect, no?
There is absolutely. There is one side effect of an unbalanced growth is that you have low consumption, low investment in advanced economy.
From the advanced
economy. So a lot of the capital from that part of the world wants to take advantage of the emerging market economy. What that means that a lot of money comes here.
FDI.
It could be in different forms, FDI, portfolio flows. But given the capacity of many of the emerging market countries, that directly has an impact on inflation, on asset prices. So those pressure also needs to be closely monitored.
Interesting.
So
but in the region, speaking of, I mean, I mentioned word overheating, but before you get to overheat, you are going through a tremendous growth also. What do you see the prospect of the region, Southeast Asia, as part of the larger East Asia?
If the Asian growth is much higher, as I mentioned, higher than the other growths. I mean, India is growing over 8-9%. China is growing at a very high, rapid pace. So and then you have individual countries, you know, countries like Cambodia, that we see a pick up in demand. Countries like Bangladesh, they are growing. So there is a demand pickup, and there is also a good amount of recovery underway, fairly robust recovery, and that has impact on different countries in sort of different way. Policy implication for different countries, different, like China. In the case of China, I think that the appreciation, little bit of appreciation of exchange rates, and some of the social safety net, improving the making the financial system more efficient, would help make the demand and make the growth more domestic demand based. Because a lot of the growth previously were driven by external demand. Now that's sort of shrinking. We in Asia need to think more thoroughly how can we create sustainable sources of domestic demand.
Yes, yes.
And that's feasible in different countries and different stages.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting that you mentioned India, very fast growth, China, and I see in last couple of years the shift of the global financial architecture from the G7, G8 to the G20, where the involvement of this major new emerging market. But even as ASEAN as a bloc, we are also invited, you know, to attend, to participate, at least in this G20 debate. So it's interesting the dynamics of this region as being a major, also I would say ASEAN is also a middle power in that sense, right? You know, to be part of that process. So grosso modo, you see that the region, particularly the Southeast Asia, we're doing okay, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of momentum, internal momentum.
Yeah.
Going around within the region. At the same time, however, though, we have to be very mindful, as I mentioned, that mindful of the risks. Yes. Ultimately, even though there is a lot of discussion of decoupling, ultimately it's an all connected world.
Yes, yes. What do you see by decoupling? From what and what?
Decoupling, there was a sense, you know, the theory of decoupling is that all these emerging market countries, good number of them in Asia, even if the growth slows down, that would have limited impact. They will not work like a couple.
So it will be decoupled.
Yeah, it will be decoupled. They will not move in all directions. But ultimately, decouple in a globalized economy is somewhat contradictory. Because we are all connected either through demand, capital, mobility of labor at many different levels. So the momentum is there. Demographic is there. Growth is in that direction, but however we also have to be very mindful of the risks and also the policy measures we can take. If we have inflationary pressure, we sort of have to be a little bit ahead of the curve so that we can maintain the confidence and help with the rebalancing of growth towards domestic demand, more domestic demand than less external demand.
But you know, on this decoupling, coupling, I see that the recent global financial crisis does have an impact, you know, also in the region in some way. What do you see the prospect of the recovery, particularly in the context of the U.S. financial crisis, that sort of thing, you know?
At the U.S., I think let me just give a very high level sort of description of that. What's happening at the U.S. level, I think the consumers are very over leveraged. If you look at before the crisis, consumers had 95% of, I mean, the debt level, household debt was 95% or so. Now it has come down to 85%. Still, it's still at a fairly high level, right? So the growth will be moderate. Or constrained for some time. It will take some time for those excess capacity to work out. Now, at this point, it's very important for the policymakers to build confidence, take measures, both in U.S. and also in Europe, so that they can instill confidence and resolve the financial sector issues. Ultimately, when you look at the financial institutions, they are often very closely interlinked to the government balance sheet, means how the government is doing. So the sovereign balance sheet, in the technical term, sovereign balance sheet is very much, government balance sheet is very closely linked to financial sector balance sheet. So those things need to be very closely addressed. And once the proper policies are taken, proper policies in terms of, this policies varies from country to country. In the U.S., I think that some sort of fiscal consolidation, credible fiscal consolidation has to be taken over the medium term. But in the short term, any sharp consolidation will sort of reduce the growth. So it's a very tricky, it's a very challenging sort of calibration between these competing goals. As they do it, as these measures are taken, and then hopefully growth we'll see it consistently.
No, because for me, that's a good point to get back a bit into the local reality here, which is Cambodia, because Cambodia is pretty much an open economy, so dependent on export, so dependent on the major market being the US, for textile, but now more and more toward the European market now. We used to have 80-20, 80 US market, 20, almost 20 to Europe. Now is almost 60-40 now. 60 in the US is down, and then 40 in the EU. So we see a sharp, shift of order. But from that perspective, it's how do you see the prospect of Cambodia growth in the context of a weakening of demand in our two major markets?
I think let's look at growth from its various sources.
Yeah.
Textile, you mentioned that any sharp slowdown will affect external demand.
Yes.
The other big source is the tourism.
Yeah.
We also have seen in the last couple of years sort of reorientation of tourists from European Western sources to Asian sources.
Yes, yes.
Even though at current level, a lot of the value added from Asian tourists are generally slightly lower than what the European high-end tourists were. But the volume hopefully create the volume of tourists from Asia who will compensate for some of the value added.
Yeah.
So the tourism properly anchored, Asia keeps booming, rebalancing, some of the countries appreciate, that will help with the tourism. A very new development that we are seeing at an early stage is there's a lot of interest for FDI flows. Regional other countries are either looking for new investment in manufacturing in Cambodia, or they shift their plants out of like China, Vietnam, Thailand for a combination of reasons. So that will create demand and some domestic demand, and also will improve export capacity. So hopefully the external demand will be rebalanced will from other Asian countries.
We see in recent months, even I wouldn't say year, but it's more months, a big increase of application for FDI investment with the Council of Development Cambodia. So from Japan. So this is quite interesting because, in Japan, they took a long time, to analyze our market, our economy. They've been sending mission for the last 10 years, but no order, no investment, right? But they've been working a lot on the soft infrastructure, helping us develop the civil code, for example, building vocational school, training there. But now they're investing. Now they're coming, and they're coming in a big pack. So to me, you will see some of the economic processing zone will be, filled very soon by that. So Japan, it's a major player, now in the investment. But in the last several years, we see a big upsurge of Chinese investment in this country, in trade, in investment. So I think in terms of FDI in Cambodia, it looks like we're okay.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big, hopefully a big source of, as the infrastructure bottleneck gets sort of reduced over time. That's going to be very important. That's precisely the reason why the macroeconomic and financial stability becomes very, very important, going back to the IMF's mandate. What happens is that when you see a lot of capital flow, first of all, we want to attract the right kind of the right manufacturing sectors that can create a lot of jobs. Because, given the demographic, half the population we were talking about before the show started, 25. I talked to the staff. The average age in the studio is like 24 years. The oldest is 26, youngest is 22, based on my very quick survey.
We feel old.
So I think that creating a lot of jobs, and it will also give us to diversify the economy. However, a lot of this inflow can create pressure on inflation. It has impact on the financial system, because when you have a lot of liquidity coming, that has impact on a lot of these things. That's why the macroeconomic stability, financial stability, monitoring them will be even more critical in the coming years.
So would you say that it's like oxygen, that, you know, when you have stability, you don't really appreciate, but it's only when you don't have stability you realize, right? So
yeah, I think
maybe you know this metaphor. It's
yeah, I love that analogy that when oxygen keeps going away, that's when we realize the value of it. Another analogy that I sort of like about macroeconomic stability, that I kind of, when I try to explain it to my mother what I do, macroeconomic financial stability is a vague term, and why you need it. I tell my mother it's like teeth. Only when we lose, we appreciate the value, because it seems like an abstract concept, but it's the platform that private sector. It basically means a private, predictable platform where businesses can make their plans for future, where financial sectors avoids crisis, where growth can create sustainable way. One thing about growth is that a lot of the debate we have or discussion we have, we focus on high growth, but we need to know how the growth comes.
And is it inclusive or not?
Is it inclusive or not? So what you're raising is the quality of growth.
Quality of growth.
One is the equity, whether it's inclusive or not, whether growth is happening. So whether budget, not the budget, the government fiscal revenue is also increasing, that can create, improve quality of investment and the level of investment on social infrastructure and other infrastructures. The other is the sustainability. Sometimes we may be growing, but it may not be sustainable. I think I like the way to think about growth, quality of growth, is that it's like we want to gain weight, but the question is, do you gain weight through muscle or through fat?
Fat, you're right.
If we have fat, then it can create diabetes, it can create heart attack.
All right.
So all those other things. So that's why we need to focus on the quality of growth.
In muscle.
In muscle.
But sometimes, some people have their fat is so thick that they think it's muscle.
I absolutely love that description. Yes, so that's why we need to, and to be modest about it, knowing at the macro level, whether that thing that feels hard is muscle or fat. We need to do analysis, we need to do research, and we need to learn from other countries.
Yes, exactly, we need to learn. In that context, I would say that ASEAN as a bloc, right, is also putting together an office, a monitoring office, for that sort of thing in Singapore also. So I think, at the country level, we need to have our own surveillance. The IMF is helping, and as a grouping, ASEAN is also realized that they must have a sort of regional, stability, surveillance, monitoring also, and a global level, the IMF is playing such a big role.
Yeah, that is at the regional level, that's a very positive development. One thing is this region is especially in particular very equipped to follow, to appreciate, and also do the surveillance very well. Because some of the ASEAN members knew the pains of crisis. And there is a deep political commitment to avoid. And we in Cambodia, we can benefit. We can benefit from some of the ASEAN, some of the policy mistakes, or some of the policies, or some of the development some of the Asian countries have before the crisis. So we can learn from some of their policy choices that we don't want it here, some of the other ones that we want to avoid, or some we want to adopt. So we have the benefit of starting the development process slightly later. The benefit is that we can learn from the benefits or the right policies of other countries. We can also avoid the ones from the other countries.
Faisal, we're coming to the end of the show. 30 minutes is very fast. What's your last word? What do you want the audience to remember?
I just want to tell the audience that I'm extremely happy, both personally and professionally, to have the opportunity to work in Cambodia. In many ways, it reminds me from where I'm from, and also I am really thrilled to be in a country with such a large young population who are eager to learn. Although some of the work that we is very abstract, but I can assure you that this abstract thing, macro financial stability, is the platform that we all live on. And I would like to share the ideas with the younger crowd through universities, through media, and through schools, in every possible venue, and also through the younger economists. I'm very thrilled to be here and look forward to working with all of you for the next 3 years.
Great. Well, Faisal, look like they have a good sort of like a promise from your part. So, so you'll be helping teaching a few class also when you have time at the university.
Yes.
I think it'll be good. Yeah. Well, look, let me just say formally thank you on behalf of the studio, of the audience, if I may. But also, you know, from my perspective, I think we appreciate the work that the IMF have done, you know, for the last 20 years or so since the Paris Peace Accord. And like I say, you know, giving this advice, this policy advice to maintain this stability, you know, that is so crucial for the sustenance of our growth, you know, this inclusive growth. It's important for us, you know, and we look forward to see a continued relation, this partnership with the IMF. And let me just say once again, sir, thank you so much. Yes. Yes. Okay. So, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very sort of like not something that if you're not in the field easy to digest, but it's something that we have to tackle, we have to understand, we have to learn, we have to contribute with, which is the macroeconomic stability of the country. And so one message that I got from this dialogue is that growth, yes, but is it sustainable? Is it equitable? When you grow, you do not confuse fat and muscle, even though your fat sometimes is so hard and you think it's muscle. But in other words, we want quality growth, and we are happy to have the IMF in Cambodia, and we look forward to have more of this exchange to make sure that the next 5 or 10 years of the new Cambodia, which I like to say that after next year when we chair the Cambodia, chairing the ASEAN, it be a new image for Cambodia. It's a Cambodia that have graduated, it's a Cambodia that is mature, it's a Cambodia that will want to be part, an active player in the regional economy, in the world economy. So in that sense, Faisal, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Okay.